The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
Welcome, Giles and the Goalie Podcast. Hopefully this sounds much better kicking off this week than we did last week. We blew out Tom Schreier's eardrums.
Oh, that's right. I almost fell out of my chair.
You did. I am your host, Giles Farrell. That is the voice of Ben Remington.
Hello.
Ben, there is a lot of optimism in Twin City sports.
What?
You have your 8-3 Minnesota Vikings, who always just get the hope of the fans. People just keep circling the wagons, no matter how many times you're crushed.
Are you trying to upset me?
The Twins had their big 101-win season, and there's hope for their future.
Sure.
Gopher football, despite losing last weekend to Iowa, 9-1. Future very bright.
Yes.
Timberwolves have Karl Anthony Towns and a resurgent Andrew Wiggins. Future seemingly bright.
Yeah.
Then we circle the wagons to the Minnesota Wild, who, as we record on Monday the 18th, are last in the NHL with 16 points. Not last in the Central, not last in the Western Conference. Last in the NHL with 16 points.
Do you think when Bruce said that comment about being ranked 32nd out of 31 teams, do you think that he ever saw this outcome coming?
Well, they're certainly trying to get him to 32nd out of 31 teams.
They're just begging for Seattle to join the league.
Seattle, join now. You'll have a better team than us.
We have more points than Seattle.
And as we start the podcast this week, the future is bleak right now if you're a Minnesota Wild fan. Although, when I put out that statistic today that the Wild are last in the NHL in points on Twitter, I got more positivity back from that tweet than negativity.
What? How?
People want the team to finish last to have an 18% chance at winning the number 1 overall pick.
18? That's basically a lock.
Don't get your hopes up, folks. Somebody, I think that was our old pal Serious Mashup, replied saying 4th pick.
Which it's happened to the Avalanche twice in the last 3 years. Yeah, I mean, when a 180 hitter comes to the plate, how good do you feel about it?
Not good.
Not great is the answer there.
I don't feel good about watching Kenny Vargas hit.
He'll do fine in Korea. I don't know. Don't get me wrong, getting elite talent is great. And the Wild need to get elite talent, but let's not pretend like, we're dealing with any kind of certainty here. This isn't the NFL.
Right.
This isn't Major League Baseball. This is a league with a draft lottery. And a legitimate one as far as we can tell, unlike the NBA. They actually let the chips fall where they may. That's how Edmonton ends up with the first overall pick every other year.
Right.
This is not a positive thing.
Oh. And it was another less than stellar week from the Minnesota Wild as they, continued to drop games. But the big thing I wanted to discuss off the top, besides the literally in the basement of the NHL, is there has been a drastic change in how the Wild are managing 3-on-3 overtime. As Bruce Boudreau has been practicing for a couple of weeks. New strategy in overtime. He deployed seemingly some different 3-on-3 combinations. And in the 90-something seconds of overtime on Saturday against Carolina, the following players never touched the ice. Mikko Koivu, Zach Parise, and Ryan Suter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, we have a very small sample to work with here.
Sure.
But there seems to be heavy speculation that the new overtime strategy could involve not those three players, as they have been huge deterrents for the Wild in the past for losing in these 3-on-3 overtimes since they've started because of their inability to get off the ice.
Well, not only that, but, I mean, you're talking about three guys that aren't super fleet of foot, right? Suter's not a terrible skater, but, as far as our defensemen, as far as the Wild defensemen go, I don't think he's all that quick.
What? You don't enjoy Mikko Koivu jet skiing on the back of Connor McDavid down the middle of the ice?
That's what I'm saying.
Overtime?
Like, Koivu and Parise love their skill sets, obviously. They're not fast guys. That's not their game at all. So I think that, this is definitely a positive move. Obviously, not the results that anyone was looking for on Saturday against the Canes.
Sorry, water skiing. I blew that line.
Jet skiing? Yeah, that's not allowed on the ice, Giles.
Water skiing.
Anywhoozle, this might be a situation where, and I don't know if that's the entire strategy, but at least the process was good in the players that he deployed. Their strategy, as far as like an X and O's thing, kind of seemed to be like turtling or just really playing not to lose. Like they backpedaled a lot. It was striking to me. Like they got pinned in their own zone, and whatever they eventually made it out. They make a change with the puck in the neutral zone, and next thing you know, Eric Stahl is behind his own net, and one short turnover and one kind of soft goal later, you lose the game. So I don't, if that's part of the strategy, if backpedaling to behind your own net to set up some kind of miniature flying V is the way they're looking to go, I don't know if that's a good idea.
If soft goals is a new strategy, I got some bad news for you. That's not a new strategy.
It hasn't worked out for anyone so far.
That's been a constant thing for the last year and change. Our soft goals, which is why we didn't get more time to see this new overtime strategy, is because the Canes come down the ice and a shot from the face-off circle goes by Devin Dubnyk. Yeah. And it was somewhat tipped, which that's really becoming an excuse lately. I've seen that at least once a game the last couple
deflections.
Games. Yeah, it just, I know they're hard, but that one in overtime just did not.
Deflections are really, really hard to stop as a goalie, but I've beat this drum for years that is how you beat Dubnyk. And obviously, there's a book out on him.
Weird.
Like, obviously, a lot of teams have seen all you need to do is change the direction of the puck, and he virtually can't stop it. And, he's a big goalie. He's not super athletic. It makes sense. He's not back there flopping around like Al Stalock does. He's a big guy that it's hard for him to get low to see through legs, to see deflections. And, with those long limbs, it's hard sometimes to change which direction you're moving. It totally makes sense.
And we've had this discussion many times on this podcast's history of how deflections are incredibly difficult to track and, continue to stop and whatnot. It just, the one on Saturday didn't seem to have really changed the trajectory that much, and it seemed to be more of a stoppable puck, which did not get stopped, and Bruce Boudreau shared that same sentiment after the game by basically putting it all on the goaltender.
And he's not wrong.
Which, if you've watched the Wild this year, and we haven't, just kidding, we have. We have. It's a recurring thing that you see these goals from terrible angles that don't get stopped, and you have to stop these pucks from bad angles. Low danger shots, as they're now called. You have to stop these, and these aren't getting stopped. This is why the Wild are in 31st in the NHL. Is goaltending has been
abysmal,
terrible. And as I saw today, if you follow Sean Tierney on Twitter, Charting Hockey, his one of the graphs he put out was expected goals, in which you see the Wild doing very well at expected goals against. The defense is suppressing shots again to the outside into these low danger areas, and pucks are not getting stopped. How deflating is that as a defensive unit where you are doing your job so good, but then a shot from no man's land that has no business turning on the red light does just that.
So it's funny you mention that because I'm looking at evolvinghockey.com right now, Giles.
Yeah, that's a good stat site.
It's a great site. And I have pulled up goals saved above expected.
Weird, I have that same stat open on my computer.
Really? So the 10 worst goalies in the league out of 62 qualifying goalies, so roughly, every starter and backup in the league. The 10th worst goaltender in the league is Al Stalock. 5 goals below what he should be saving, according to the model from the Twins that we adore so much. Then it's actually kind of a impressive list here. UC Saros, Jonathan Quick, Matt Murray, Jimmy Howard, Andrei Vasilevskiy, Corey Schneider, who was put on waivers today. Martin Jones is the 3rd worst goal in the NHL. The worst goalie in the NHL, Sergei Bobrovsky. How's that free agent contract working out? But clocking in at number 2, most goals allowed below expected, Devin Dubnyk. So not only do you have Al Stalock sitting pretty at number 10, you've got Devin Dubnyk as the 2nd worst goalie in the NHL, according to this measure, which I think is a pretty good measure of how your goaltending is doing, at least relative to the defense in front of him. When you look at save percentage, it's not much different. Dubnyk's in the bottom 10 of virtually every single metric there is. It might even be bottom 5 in every single metric there is, especially advanced metrics. So, Dubnyk was kind of this, came in hot, had a great first half season here, turned himself into a Vezina candidate. Next year, kind of inconsistent, really good months, really bad months. Next year, kind of same thing, really good months, really bad months. Last season, started off hot, and everyone's like, great, maybe he's going to put it together for a full season. Kind of fell off, and everyone's like, you know what, this happens, maybe he's going to bounce back. He never did. It's really hard at this point. We're almost 2 months into the season, or we're 6 weeks into the season right now, to not just say the bottom has fallen out of Devin Dubnyk. And it really sucks, and you hate to see it happen to a guy, and he seems like a nice enough guy. He seems like a likable guy, does great things, charity work, and his story is awesome, how he persevered through being drafted by the Edmonton Oilers to end up being a Vezina candidate at one point. But
it was almost done with hockey in general.
Right. And so incredible comeback, won the Masterton, all that. So, but it's tough not to just be like, he's cooked. He's just cooked. And not just from this season's results, but last season's as well. I mean, last season from November on, he was brutal.
Correct.
Just brutal. And this year, from the jump all the way through, brutal. And so it just becomes kind of a game of chicken, like how long do you put up with this? How long do the Wild just kind of sit on their goaltending? We know what Alex Stalock is. He's a below-average NHL backup. He's a great AHL depth guy. Let's be honest. He's a great emergency starter who can sometimes keep you in a game, sometimes. Devin Dubnyk is not that guy, not the guy anymore. He's not an NHL starting goaltender anymore. Simple as that. And, I know Guerin is watching this team and waiting and biding his time, but how long? How long can he do that? Or is this the plan? If you want to get to a top pick, this is how you do it. There's no more effective way of tanking than rolling out bad goaltending on a night-to-night basis. So maybe this is part of the long game. Maybe, and I guess the other part of it is they don't have much of a choice.
No.
What are you going to do at this point? You can't trade. You're not going to trade for a freaking all-star goalie right now. It's just not anything that ever really happens.
That's just not going to happen. What's more likely to happen is the Wild trade a goaltender as the deadline gets closer. If even that's a possibility, they would probably have to eat some kind of money on Devin Dubnyk if somebody came calling. But I can't imagine anyone sitting out there looking at Devin Dubnyk right now wants to acquire that with a year and a half left, and that's the
2
sad.
years left.
This year, next year.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, and I'm looking up right now, I believe he is extremely buyout friendly at this point, because that's how that contract was set up to begin with, and I remember noting that when it was signed.
But next year we can be buyout free on the cap. The Wild can be buyout free on the cap.
Death, taxes, and having a buyout on the books, Giles. This is how the NHL works.
And so as you're looking this up, this is my other point, is this goes back to Chuck Fletcher. From Chuck Fletcher to Paul Fenton until just this last year, is that the goaltender position was pretty neglected in the draft. And that's now kind of coming home to roost for the Wild, is the fact that they don't have much in the pipeline readily available. You can see what you have with your guys sitting in Iowa and Kakkonen and Robson, but that would have to involve Dubnyk or Stalock probably coming off the roster, getting injured.
Yeah.
And we talked about either the last podcast or the one before that I am all for it, because what do you have left to try and do at this point? And this also kind of goes back to the overtime discussion. Is it seems to me that with signaling this change in overtime philosophy, Bruce Boudreau is now very open to trying new things. Results be damned.
Yeah, I would agree.
He has never veered away from throwing 9, 11, and 20 out in overtime. And now the team is 31st in the league standings, and I think he maybe sees the writings on the wall that nothing's going to get better, so I might as well try a few things and see if something sticks. So, say a Dubnyk or Stalock gets hurt at some point, it wouldn't surprise me if he tries to roll with whomever they call up from Iowa. Probably Kakkonen, because he was the first call up at some point earlier in the year. But Bruce is not afraid now to try some things, and we've talked about how his contract is up after this year, at least from the coaching standpoint. Yeah. And I think he sees that this team is just not going anywhere, so he might as well just
throw it against the wall,
throw what at the wall, and see if anything sticks. And if he's back next year, he has some things he can lean on, and if not, then that's for the next guy to pick up and try to figure out.
So Dubnyk's buyout will save the Wild $1.6 million next year, which isn't a ton, to be honest. He had a cap hit of $4.3 million, base salary $2.5, and then the following year, 21-22, the cap hit would be $833,000. So really not much. Like I said, very buyout friendly contract. Going to save you a little bit of money next year. Not a ton, but enough to pay a goalie, not a great goalie. Obviously, you can't afford a good goalie for $1.6 million. But a guy where you can throw him on a one-year deal and say, see what you do, and then maybe extend him later. And then the following season, you're out $830,000. Not anything really all that, especially with the contracts they have coming off. Not anything that's going to kill the team. So I don't know. It's going to be the question the whole rest of the season if nothing changes. Waiting for something to change, basically. Waiting for something to change with the goaltending. Whether it be Dubnyk, whether it be Stalock, whether it be something in the coaching ranks maybe. I just something is going to have to change at some point, or the tank is on.
All right. You're not going to go anywhere with this iteration of goalies. You're going to be where you're at, and as I wrote earlier, the Wild are tanking without actually tanking.
Yeah.
Whether anyone at St. Paul will tell you that or not, but yeah, it doesn't look good, and this to me now has become a more pressing problem than finding a score or just finding a score. Because I wrote about this in the off season. Early in the off season, I wrote how the Wild have to address the goaltending position, not just in the short term but in the long term, which they started to do in the draft when they took a couple of goaltenders, which was great. Hunter Jones has looked sharp in the OHL so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I forget the other goalie they drafted. But Paul Finn started to look at it.
Really late.
Yeah.
But
then, Paul Finn got fired. So but I have to feel like Bill Guerin sees this as problem 1, at least 1A, in trying to right the ship, is that
Philip Lindbergh.
He's got to address the goaltender position. What round was he taken in?
7th round.
7th round, okay.
So, that's really a flyer. But
you know who the Wild once drafted in the 7th round as a goaltender? Darcy Kemper.
Oh, yeah.
He might have been a 6th round.
Yeah, I don't think he was a 7th.
Anyway.
6 sounds right.
Hey! Darcy Kemper, I remembered.
Is he the best goalie in the NHL right now?
He's up there.
He's up there.
It's incredible. It's weird what a decent goaltending coach, a change of voice in your ear can do. But we did ask a question about Mr. Kemper on our Twitter account at GATG Wild Podcast, and while I remember it, I'm just going to read it right now.
Yeah.
We wanted to read from you, the listeners. What do you think Darcy Kemper said last Saturday that made everyone on the Wild angry? And I was more hoping for joke answers, or I even said, can be serious. Best answers will be read on the show. Oh, hi, Tony said, I killed Mufasa. Matt Miller said, Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. Zach Moore says, the Mighty Ducks movies aren't even good.
That's offensive.
That's not readable out loud.
I am triggered.
Brian Foley makes a great reference to us on the last show from Slapshot.
He knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, he was all. Oh,
that was a fantastic gift to go with it.
Yes. Julio Scores says, "Tell your mom I said hi."
That's a oldie but a goodie, I guess. It's classic.
I mean, it goes with the team. Old. At least the guys that got offended. Old. Let's see. Yeah, those are kind of my. Well, okay, we got Brian Reynolds up here. Said vodka's better than whiskey.
But he said it to Koivu, who's a Finn. I'm assuming he's more of a vodka guy. Vodka seems like a Scandinavian. Maybe I'm just thinking of that because
maybe it's the other way around.
And Svedka and all that. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he said whiskey's better than vodka. I mean, Darcy Kemper is a fine Canadian boy, so it's entirely possible.
That's true.
So we talked about goals saved above expected and how Devin Dubnyk is second worst in the league. Mr. Darcy Kemper is fourth best in the NHL right now. So not the best goalie in the league, but according to the Evolving Wild Twins, he is fourth.
There you go.
Just throwing it out there.
So on to some more serious matters, because we are a very serious and otherwise fine podcast.
Yes.
But if you read Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts column last Tuesday, that would be the 12th of November, he put out his latest iteration of that. And in there he floated the idea of Minnesota possibly maybe moving on from Ryan Donato, who was acquired last year. Obviously, it's just speculation on his part. There's nothing, being seriously reported, but a lot of what he says is speculation. But when you're as well connected as a guy like him, when you speculate on something like that, it kind of tends to be where there's smoke, there's fire, kind of a thing. So I wanted to go on this a little bit because, it is a valid question. Is it too early to give up on Ryan Donato as we record 18 games this year, 1 goal and 2 assists, and he's only averaging 10 minutes and 3 seconds. In the 22 games he played after being acquired last year, he played 15 and a half minutes a night and got 16 points in 22 games. So production nowhere close to what it was at any point after being acquired for Charlie Coyle last year, but at the age of 23.
Yeah.
Sorry, quick math. I don't. Is it kind of he might be is what he is, or is there still time to let him figure it out?
I think there's still time. He's shown the skills, and you look at a case study like Mikael Granlund. How long did it take him to hit the upper echelon of his career point mark? Took him quite a while, right? So,
yeah, he didn't get it going. Remember, he caught fire at the end of, I think it was the 15-16 season.
Yeah.
And then he carried that right into Bruce Boudreau.
Right.
So, yeah, when he was at the end of his age 23 season.
Once Mike Gill was fired.
Weird.
Yeah. So looking at it again, looking at evolvinghockey.com. This is going to be an evolvinghockey.com podcast today.
Should we just send them a bill for sponsoring?
They should send us a check. But it's the same
send
thing.
Them an invoice.
Yeah. Let's invoice.
I do that on the regular.
That's true. You're good at that. Third notices. So Ryan Donato, 12th on the Minnesota Wild in points per 60 minutes. But as you mentioned, not getting a lot of time. So I mean, just the fact that his rates they're not good. Don't get me wrong. But right now he's scoring per minute more than, Ryan Hartman, Brad Hunt, Zach Parise, Jonas Brody, no surprise, Matt Dumba, a bunch of other defensive. Mikko Koivu is on this list. And Ryan Donato is not completely floundering. Is he producing at a breathtaking rate? Absolutely not. But again, he's 23. He's not getting a lot of minutes, and we've seen how many players not get a lot of minutes and struggle, then get a lot of minutes and thrive. I mean, this is like, I don't know if we want to call it Nino-itis or what, but like that's what happens when you bury people in the lineup and, don't put them with skilled players. I mean, I don't know exactly who Ryan Donato has been playing with most of the time. I'd have to look it up, but I'm assuming he spent a lot of time with, like Hartman and Fiala and Rask, who are kind of in and out of the lineup and not playing great hockey necessarily, especially Rask. I don't know. I don't think that you give up on him yet. That being said, the Wild very well could give up on him just for the simple fact that he's not their guy, right? Like, they didn't trade for him. This front office, or at least Guerin at the top, did not trade for him. And he might not think the world of him. And he might still see that he has enough value just in the fact that he was a pretty decent prospect this time last year, where he can move him for something that he prefers. So I think in a vacuum, no, you don't give up on Donato yet. You give him more minutes, if anything. What do you have to lose at this point? You're the worst team in the fucking NHL. What do you have to lose?
Right.
But if they do, it's not going to shock me because he's not their guy, and he might still be a worthwhile trading chip. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of 23-year-olds on the roster that you're probably willing to deal. Maybe he's one of them.
And that could be something we see more as the trade deadline gets closer, is the Wild elevate these young players up in the lineup in the hopes that, many of them start playing better, and you can maybe move them away. However, I'd argue if they all started playing better, then maybe a few more wins would follow suit. But then I remembered goaltending.
Yeah.
Which is basically an injury.
Yeah.
Goaltending's just still going to torpedo this team. So, we've talked about this before as well, that the Wild will have to make room for Kirill Kaprizov at some point, so somebody has to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the wingers has to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be Parise. Probably not going to be Zucker. You're going to have to move a Donato or Fiala or Greenway even.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's the cold reality. You want Kaprizov here badly, well then somebody's got to go, and it's more easier to cut bait with a guy like Donato because he's not your guy if you're Bill Guerin. Just as Granlund, Coyle, and Niederreiter were not Fenton's guys, even though he sold them for
pennies on the dollar.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, and Giles referenced this before, but what he's saying is that there's no contracts ending this season aside from Mikko Koivu, which not a wing. Luke Kunin and Jordan Greenway, who are RFAs, who you would expect to stick around unless one of those guys are dealt, which is entirely possible. But to your point, you got to make room for a wing, and you've got everyone else under contract for the following season. So you literally do have to trade somebody to make a spot for Kirill Kaprizov, unless you plan on not re-signing Kunin or Greenway, which just seems like foolish asset management at this point. You might as well trade them.
I mean, Bill Guerin doesn't have much of a bar to clear in terms of asset management from his predecessors.
No, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't do a good job at it.
Right. I'm just saying, he literally cannot do any worse.
Yeah, the bar is low.
Well, maybe I shouldn't tempt fate like that, but
yeah, that's a fair point.
It's. I'm just. All these previous trades just quick floated into my head and just caused a minor aneurysm. So
yikes.
I don't like to give up on 23-year-old players, especially ones that show promise like Donato, but
right.
I think what we've seen so far in 18 games to start the year is a little bit what maybe Boston saw before the trade, which is why Donato was marooned to Providence.
Yeah.
But, as you said, what can you lose by, tossing them up in the lineup and seeing what you got?
You are literally worse than the Ottawa Senators right now.
That's bad.
That's really bad. So, go nuts.
Eugene Melnick is using this as a ploy to up his ticket prices by 5%. See, we're not bad anymore.
We're better than the Wild. Build me a new stadium.
We're better than the state of hockey.
Oh, no.
We'll have to ask Evolving Wild how Ottawa is. They were just there.
Oh, that's right. There was that ginormous nerd conference at Ottawa. Yes, I remember.
I mean, I am intrigued by it.
I mean that in a very endearing way.
Yeah,
I love those guys.
I should go to one of those sometime. I would like to go to those.
That would be really
fun.
cool, actually, yes.
Because you kind of see that you follow enough people where you can kind of get like the cliff notes of the conference, and there's a lot of fascinating things. So I am very fascinated. One of these times I'll have to try and go, but you have to pay to go to these places. And
sure.
I have a wedding to pay for.
Yeah,
me. We're getting into the nitty gritty now. We're getting into invitation time.
Yeah.
And
you just wait until that final month, homeboy. That final month where the expenses just...
I gotta start signing checks.
It's literally death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like, it's just... Oh, this is $100. Oh, that's $100. Oh, this is $100. Oh, that's $100. Next thing you know, you drop $2,000 and you have no idea what on.
That's what I said yesterday, death by 1,000 paper cuts, but I was referencing the Vikings in the first half.
I think that's a ubiquitous Minnesota sports thing.
Yeah. We've really just danced around to like 4 different topics in 30 seconds.
We don't like to talk about the Wild. This has been established.
No. All right. Speaking of Mikhail Granlund, I pulled up his stats because I had him at... We were talking about what age he finally took off, which is in the similar realm of where Ryan Donato's at. God, he is just off to a horrible start in Nashville. Actually, I've seen some columns written about what maybe the future could hold for him, and he might not be a fit in Nashville. So
he really hasn't been so
it's
far.
possible he could get moved again before the trade deadline this year if David Poile feels that way.
How much money is that guy costing himself? My word. I mean, you go from a perennial 60-point guy to this.
I mean,
Woof.
Bruce Boudreau is now head over heels for him, so he would love to see him again in a friendly uniform, but maybe Bruce and Granlund can reunite on a new team.
Oh, jeez.
Too soon?
I mean, weirder things have happened.
All right. Checking my notes. I know we had something else on the docket. Yes, I have a bone to pick with whomever put this out there. I have a huge bone to pick.
This grinds Giles' gears in a way
Oh, my goodness.
that I have not seen.
Last week, somebody tweeted Michael Russo, and I saw other people talking about it during the day, but I never really gave it the light of day. But then I saw Russo call it out, and then I finally, gave it the attention because, first of all, not to say that I, live and die by everything Russo says, but rumors that come out on the internet, where are they coming from? That's my first question. Where did this start? Because if it starts somewhere that I don't know where it's from, I don't trust it. So I'm not going to think twice about it.
Right.
So when you see a rumor that says the 2021 Winter Classic hosted by Minnesota is going to be at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, I'm not giving it a second look. But then I see Russo have to answer that, to which he said both the League and the Wild vehemently deny this rumor because it appeared that an official ticket package partner of the NHL had listed that on their site for 2021.
I just... Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah.
How does that get there? How? Why?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the problem. Lambeau Field is what? It's a 5-hour drive
Yeah,
from the
probably.
Twin Cities?
At least, yeah.
Imagine Minnesota finally getting the Winter Classic, and fans have to drive 5 hours to the east in a state that majority of them don't like, in a stadium that many of them don't like.
Yep.
It hurts. It hurts, and I'm trying to cut down on my spirituous beverages. Spirituses. Talking's hard.
The thing that I don't get is why they feel the need that Wisconsin needs a Winter Classic. Not that anybody official is actually saying this, but whoever created this rumor and whoever is actually perpetuating it, why the hell would you think Wisconsin would ever be interested in a Winter Classic? Especially more so than the Twin Cities. We've talked about this whole Winter Classic thing for years, and it's so stupid, and it's so overblown, and Wild fans really need to stop obsessing over it. You wrote an article almost saying exactly that last season, or 2 seasons ago. It all
I think it was
blends
last year.
together now. Batman Forever. Wisconsin doesn't like hockey. They don't effing care.
No.
The Wild are simulcast on FS Wisconsin. That does garbage ratings for them. They don't care about hockey in Wisconsin. Are there little pockets? Madison, a little bit of a hockey town, because of the college and because of the junior team. That's about it. There's not a hockey presence in Wisconsin. There's not. There's just not. They have an AHL team in Milwaukee. Nobody cares. Nobody cares at all.
And the site that I referenced was NHLexperiences.com, which appears to be like a subsidiary of Ticketmaster, because they have packages for the 2020 Winter Classic in Dallas and the 2020 All-Star
Is it NHL
Weekend.
Experiences with 5 hours?
No.
Oh.
And the All-Star Weekend in St. Louis, and the Stadium Series game at Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I don't get...
The page is gone now, by the way.
Oh, of course, yeah. But it just seems like... I don't know. If it is in some way, shape, or form true, I can't imagine anything dumber And seeing as how dumb that is,
Or I'm sorry, the page still exists. It just no longer says the venue as it did, which said Lambeau Field. It just says 2021 Winter Classic TBD.
you know who would be more likely to play at Lambeau Field than the Minnesota Wild?
Chicago.
Exactly. It's closer. And, like, you can make another joke about the Blackhawks playing in a Winter Classic, but, I mean, it's kind of a proven thing that NBC likes to do. So, I don't know. It just, whatever. It is what it is, and I can't imagine this happening. It seems so dumb to me.
And Russo's put this out there a few times that the prominent place seems to be Target Field, which they're
Right.
trying to iron out details about.
I don't know why it's not TCF.
They already did that.
Yeah, but it's a good venue.
It is.
I'll say this. I don't like hockey games at baseball stadiums. Way
No.
too much space. Way too much space in the field. And Target, I love Target Field. I love Target Field.
Counterpoint, Target Field has better sight lines to the city of Minneapolis.
Well, so what?
It's about television.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, if it's at Target Field, maybe I'll go, but I doubt it.
If the Winter Classic gets the trees reinstalled at Target Field, will you be on board?
But they already put up the ivy. I think they have on the batter's eye now. There is greenery there, Giles. I don't know if it's carnivorous,
But cares about the trees.
but there's greenery. There's no trees. Joe Mauer said he can't have trees.
He's gone.
Well,
It hurts. He's gone. So I thought a little more rationally about this after my immediate anger
aneurysm.
calmed down. And, I wonder if this is something that has been discussed because a certain owner of the Minnesota Wild hails from the state of Wisconsin.
It's true, and he's from that area. He's from Neenah,
The star
which is
defenseman on
by
the Minnesota Wild, Ryan
Appleton.
Suter, hails from Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It feels like it could be something that maybe had a little discussion at the table in, trying to market the NHL more into that region. But I don't think it can rationally be put there when it's all said and done.
Lambeau's, I get the historic venue thing, like when they went to Fenway and when they went to Wrigley and when they played in the big house and blah, blah, blah. But it's just not a fit. It's just not a fit. And I get it, TCF, Target Field, not really historic venues that people love, around the country at least, like Lambeau. But it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I had an axe to grind and I had a slight aneurysm again at the beginning of the segment.
It's totally fair.
I don't understand. Well, as I just pointed out, I can see why it was discussed, but when all said and done, I can't fathom Minnesota getting to host the Winter Classic and you have to drive 5 hours to the east into Wisconsin for it. That just... It seems like a slap in the face, but now that I think about it, that's just true Wild sense slap in the face.
Right.
So that's the entire existence of this team, slap in the face.
Yeah.
That would be very Wild to happen. So who knows? It could happen. I'd have another aneurysm, but it's just... All right, what else? The hell else do we have to talk about? That might have been it.
Yeah, that could probably do it.
We vented enough. Wild are on the road this week, so we will. We'll see. I'm kind of excited to see the Buffalo Sabres. They get Tuesday. Also, Buffalo put out this injury report like an NFL team would. It was just wonderful. Did you see that?
No. Was there no lower body injuries on it?
Well, lower body, whatever. But it was just like, some teams don't even disclose injuries. Just say undisclosed injury. Okay?
No.
Thanks.
Sure.
Can't can't do anything with that. But
I think until the NHL holds teams more accountable, which is never going to happen, we're just going to keep continuing to see that.
Well, and I know many have brought this up on bigger podcasts that you kind of have to maybe start doing this at some point because the NHL's starting to get in bed with gambling companies. Like you can't hide injuries like this. So
well, not to mention transparency too.
Right.
Is kind of the biggest thing. But yeah, definitely the gambling thing. I mean, that's definitely going to be a factor.
Oh, I just looked at the rest of the schedule for the week. What a terrible week. Just don't expect a chipper podcast when we come back next week. Wild at Sabres on Tuesday. Then the Wild come home to play the Avalanche on Thursday. Then they go to Boston on Saturday.
Hey.
So that just sounds like 0-3.
So something that's a lot of fun. The leaked Avalanche Stadium Series jersey.
Oh.
How freaking bad was that?
It's fitting for that franchise.
If you haven't seen it, please look it up. You can't it's just a giant.
You had the best illustration of it with the Vancouver jersey from what is that, like the early 80s?
Yes, the 80s.
With the upside down.
Yeah, I just flipped it upside down.
Yeah.
That's what the Avalanche is. It's just a giant A, but it's literally like an A the size of the jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrible.
What a uniform.
And I don't know what they're thinking with that. And
somebody got paid to do that.
God, when are they going to hire us as jersey consultants
that
already?
Looks, and I said this. I laughed, and then I said, somebody got paid to do this, and they literally made this in MS Paint.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not sure I can more associate a jersey with being made in MS Paint than that jersey.
Yeah, like, I made this in MS Paint today. Now, that looks professionally done in MS Paint. Looks better than the Avs jersey.
Yeah.
Right? For those who...
We are computer savvy, so we can do better than MS Paint
Exactly.
jerseys.
And even when I do stuff in MS Paint, like all of the jersey design articles I've ever done, it still looks better than this Avalanche jersey. And that's an MS Paint.
It's been... Who do they play in this outdoor game?
Don't even remember.
I don't even know. That's the
Don't care.
problem. You don't know anything about the outdoor
care.
games
It doesn't
anymore.
matter.
The NHL doesn't promote any of this anymore. So I'm now curious as to who they're going to play and trying to guess.
That's it.
Kings.
Oh, that's weird.
Ugh.
What? Why would they book one of the worst teams in hockey? Okay.
It would have made more sense to put the Vegas Knights in that game.
Yeah.
Given the proximity to Colorado. And,
Yeah.
They're a more marketable team, but I don't know.
And you have it. They're having it at Air Force, right?
Right.
You could have had Air Force versus Area 51.
Right, and
there you go, done deal.
Bill Foley, the owner of the Knights, is a
Huge
big military guy.
Yeah, big military guy.
It's why they're the Golden Knights.
Right. Whatever.
We
We got too many good ideas for the NHL, Giles. Too many.
Yeah, we're too smart for our own good. That's what everyone says about this podcast.
We are definitely too smart to work for NHL marketing. I know that
That's
much.
true. We just
I have a 2-year marketing degree from Harvard on a Hill, Century College, and I am still too smart to work for NHL marketing.
You're definitely smarter at marketing than the idiot we were slamming earlier today.
That's true.
I don't want to pay for your content. All right, guy who works in marketing.
Oh, that guy. Screw that guy.
And then he bought it anyway.
Well, all's well that ends well.
Whatever. All right. Yeah, so there we had our little jersey talk of the day.
You happy now?
Yeah. I'm going to go home and watch Chiefs.
Nice.
Wear my Chiefs stuff to work today and just still confuse everyone in the office that I'm a Chiefs fan. It's great.
Yeah. Maybe I should wear my Mahomes jersey on Friday here.
Yeah.
Kind of do a casual Friday around here. So.
Thank you for reminding me. I have a bone to pick with Roz about Frank's Mahomes jersey.
Oh, yes. It was prematurely packed away.
She'll be on line 1.
Oh, she's going to get it. Whiz bang, straight to the moon. It's horribly inappropriate these days, but
Actually, I'll politely remind her to take it off.
Excuse me?
I'll be polite.
Can you open that tote bin there and pull out the red shirt?
She's very nice.
Yeah. Well,
if it was you, I wouldn't be as polite.
That's true.
All right, we're going to get out of here.
Yeah.
Follow on Twitter at Giles Farrell, at Ben Remington, at GATG Wild Podcast. Follow zonecoverage.com, at zonecoverage MN on Twitter. Also check out the Gopher hockey coverage that I am doing with Drew Cove, even though Gophers got swept by Penn State over the weekend, and they play Wisconsin this next weekend, and it just doesn't seem...
We get to see Cole Caulfield?
Oh, I forgot about that.
We get to see Cole Caulfield. He's making people's blood boil today.
Great. Between that and the fire Ben Clymer guy, my mentions are just going to be a tire fire. If you subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, please leave us a rating. Otherwise, you can subscribe via SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all that fun stuff. And also on YouTube if you are a YouTuber. And that will do it for us this week, and we will chat with you again next week.
Later.
It's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.